1. Los Angeles International Airport, LAX. If you've ever been to Los Angeles, you probably remember LAX packed to the brim with international travelers. It wasn't just an airport, it was a symbol of global connection. But by 2025, that picture completely flipped. The once familiar scenes of long lines and constant flight announcements have almost disappeared, replaced by a silence so striking it feels more like walking into a meditation hall. What happened to LAX? First, a wave of international airlines pulled out, with at least 10 carriers cutting back or completely dropping their routes. This includes low-cost airlines that once made headlines with $99 transatlantic tickets. With those budget options gone, young Europeans have quietly turned away. The second factor is cost. Hotel rooms near the airport now run hundreds of dollars a night, pushing total expenses far beyond what you'd spend in places like Tokyo, Seoul, or Vancouver. It's not just tourists either, business travel has also dropped sharply. International companies from Northern Europe and East Asia are now choosing safer, less politically and socially risky destinations. According to the U.S. Travel Association, international arrivals to California fell more than 35% in just the past year, with Los Angeles taking the hardest hit. That translates into billions of dollars lost not only for airlines but also for hotels, restaurants, and the broader travel industry. Uber drivers who once had rides lined up from morning till midnight now wait for hours without a single call. One worker admitted he's never seen the place this empty, not even during the pandemic. And the scariest part? This doesn't look temporary. 2. John F. Kennedy International Airport, JFK. For decades, JFK was known as the largest international gateway on the East Coast and a symbol of New York, the city that never sleeps. But by 2025, the picture has completely changed. Lounges that were once packed are now eerily empty. According to the Federal Aviation Administration, international arrivals dropped more than 30% in just a single year, marking the steepest decline since the 2008 financial crisis. And it's not just about economics, it's about how travelers feel. European visitors who once flew non-stop to JFK are now choosing Toronto, Tokyo, or Seoul instead. Many say New York no longer feels safe. Rising street crime, a visible homelessness crisis, and soaring costs make traveling to America far less appealing. A basic hotel room can run up to $400 a night, leaving everyday tourists with bills far beyond their expectations. For airlines, JFK used to be a strategic hub for transatlantic routes. But carriers like Lufthansa and Air France have cut back and shifted resources toward Asia. The ripple effects across New York are clear. Restaurants, hotels, and transport services that relied on international visitors are cutting staff or shutting down. For many locals, JFK losing its role as a true global hub also means New York itself is slipping as a top destination. Some experts even warn that if nothing changes, JFK could lose its 3. O'Hare International Airport, ORD. For decades, Chicago O'Hare has been the pride of the American Midwest, a vital bridge connecting the U.S. with Europe and Asia. But by 2025, the scene has changed beyond recognition. International traffic has dropped by more than 35% in just 1 year, and many transatlantic routes have been cut back or eliminated. Passengers who once flew non-stop from Frankfurt, Paris, or London to Chicago now find themselves connecting through Toronto, Tokyo, or even Seoul. This shift doesn't just inconvenience travelers, it weakens Chicago's strategic standing on the global map. Hotels near the airport that used to be fully booked now slash their rates. Restaurants, shuttle services, and duty-free shops have shut down as foot traffic dries up. The reasons go beyond global economics. America's image abroad has soured. A report by the European Travel Association found that 71% of Northern European tourists now view the U.S. as unsafe, citing issues like gun violence and an unfriendly healthcare system. When trust fades, so do the flights. Major carriers like Lufthansa and Air France have openly admitted they're shifting their focus toward Asia. The result is that O'Hare, once the Midwest's premier gateway, is now slipping into second-tier status. 4. Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, Seattle-Tacoma. Seattle-Tacoma has long been the most important aviation gateway in the Pacific Northwest, directly linking the U.S. to Japan, South Korea, and China. But in less than 2 years, it has gone through an unprecedented freefall. By 2025, international traffic from Asia dropped by as much as 69%, and iconic routes were completely cut. One of the biggest shocks came when All Nippon Airways, Japan's flagship carrier, officially cancelled all flights to Seattle. With that decision, Seattle-Tacoma was essentially erased from Japan's international flight map, even while routes to Toronto and Vancouver continued without interruption. This wasn't just the loss of a single route, it was the loss of trust as long-term partners walked away. The economic impact on Seattle has been severe. Downtown hotels that once depended on international travelers are now flooded with empty rooms. Industry experts point out this isn't just about the global economy, it's about America's worsening image abroad. When social safety is in doubt and emergency medical costs become a nightmare, choosing Japan, South Korea, or Canada over the U.S. becomes the easy. 4. Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, Seattle-Tacoma. Seattle-Tacoma has long been the most important aviation gateway in the Pacific Northwest, directly linking the U.S. to Japan, South Korea, and China. But in less than 2 years, it has gone through an unprecedented freefall. By 2025, international traffic from Asia dropped by as much as 69%, and iconic routes were completely cut. One of the biggest shocks came when All Nippon Airways, Japan's flagship carrier, officially cancelled all flights to Seattle. With that decision, Seattle-Tacoma was essentially erased from Japan's international flight map, even while routes to Toronto and Vancouver continued without interruption. This wasn't just the loss of a single route, it was the loss of trust as long-term partners walked away. The economic impact on Seattle has been severe. Downtown hotels that once depended on international travelers are now flooded with empty rooms. Industry experts point out this isn't just about the global economy, it's about America's worsening image abroad. When social safety is in doubt and emergency medical costs become a nightmare, choosing Japan, South Korea, or Canada over the U.S. becomes the easy call. 6. Harry Reid International Airport, Las Vegas has long been the entertainment capital of the world, drawing millions of international visitors. But by 2025, the story had shifted dramatically. International flights dropped sharply, with Canada, one of Vegas's most reliable markets, hit the hardest. When Air Canada and WestJet cut more than 40% of their flights to the U.S., Las Vegas became one of the biggest casualties. The problem goes beyond airlines. Costs have skyrocketed. A mid-range hotel in central Las Vegas now runs hundreds of dollars a night, with travelers noticing that for the same amount of money, they could stay at a resort in Canada and feel far safer. The economic fallout has been brutal, with international tourism revenue falling by nearly 40% in a single year. In the eyes of many travelers, Las Vegas is no longer the ultimate playground but rather an expensive, unsafe destination. 7. Miami International Airport, MIA. Miami has long been seen as the Golden Gateway connecting the U.S. with Europe and Latin America. But 2025 marked a bitter turning point. Lufthansa and Air France announced cuts of 30 to 45% in their U.S. routes, and Miami was among the hardest hit. Routes once considered pillars of transatlantic travel have been reduced to bare minimum service. The result has been a sharp drop in European visitors, dealing a direct blow to Miami's tourism industry. One Air France captain admitted he felt safer flying into Tokyo or Seoul than into Miami because passengers don't have to worry about chaotic protests or security concerns. European tourists are making the same comparisons, noting that for the same price, they can enjoy better service in a cleaner, safer environment in Asia. The decline of Miami International Airport represents the loss of a global meeting point, leaving the city at risk. 8. San Francisco International Airport, San Francisco Airport. San Francisco has long been one of the dream destinations for international travelers, especially from Australia and New Zealand. But 2025 brought a shocking change when Jetstar, Australia's well-known low-cost carrier, announced it was cutting all of its U.S. flights. For the first time in history, America disappeared entirely from Jetstar's route map. The reasons pointed to deeper issues. Landing costs in the U.S. had jumped by 38%, and visa procedures remained complicated. For Australian tourists, these barriers sent a clear message: they no longer felt welcome. The local economy has been hit hard, with hotels and restaurants struggling without the steady stream of Australian and New Zealand visitors. Many Australian families admit that after frustrating experiences with airport security and a lack of hospitality, they've decided to go elsewhere. Daniel K. Inouye International Airport, HNL. Honolulu, the capital of Hawaii, was once the tropical dream destination. But in 2025, everything changed when Jetstar, Australia's budget airline, announced it was pulling all of its U.S. routes, including Honolulu. The move sent shock waves not only through Hawaii but through the entire U.S. tourism industry. With the sudden disappearance of Australian travelers, beach resorts that were once fully booked now sit half empty. Retail businesses and tour operators are reporting major revenue losses. Older Australian tourists have spoken openly about their frustrations, from being held for hours at U.S. immigration checkpoints to feeling mistreated at the border. Meanwhile, Japan and South Korea are excelling at attracting visitors with smoother entry procedures and safer environments, putting Honolulu at a serious 10. Dallas, Fort Worth International Airport, DFW. Dallas-Fort Worth has long been one of America's largest aviation hubs, the beating heart of transportation for Texas. But by 2025, the outlook has turned grim. International traffic has fallen sharply, and major long-haul routes have been slashed by global carriers like Lufthansa and Air France. European travelers who used to come for Southern culture and major sports events are increasingly turning to Asia or Canada instead. The reasons are twofold: skyrocketing operating costs in the U.S. and a growing perception that American cities no longer feel safe or welcoming. A report from the Texas Tourism Association revealed that international tourism revenue fell by more than 30% in just 1 year. What's most concerning is that DFW isn't just losing tourists, it's losing its role as a global connector. An airport once considered the symbol of Texas's dynamic growth is now facing the painful reality of being left off the priority maps of major airlines. So, what do you think? Are you surprised that America's status as a top tourist destination is slipping away? If you want to keep uncovering the truths hidden beneath familiar headlines, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss the next story.